Today we're talking about Japanese beetles. Now is the season when Japanese beetles kind of start wrecking havoc on gardens. Last season we had a really light Japanese beetle year, and it looks like that trend is continuing for this summer. However, we do have Japanese beetle sightings, and they are causing quite a bit of damage, especially on the plants that they love the most. So Japanese beetles are an invasive species. They don't have any natural predators, so their populations are allowed to proliferate and just really wreak havoc on gardens, and they can fly great distances. So they were introduced kind of on the east coast of our country, and they kind of migrated from east to west, and they've been here in Minnesota for several years. Each year is a little bit different. With a really harsh winter, it kills off a lot of the Japanese beetle grubs as they lie dormant underground, and so therefore we don't see as many emerging adults, which is great because without as many adults, then you don't have as many new eggs, then it kind of helps tamp down the population for years to come. So a little bit about the Japanese beetle life cycle. Well, first I need to show you a Japanese beetle that I'm holding in my hand, and it's kind of wiggly, so I need to get rid of it. This is a Japanese beetle, and this is a smaller one. Usually they're a little bit bigger, maybe dime size, but you can tell it's a Japanese beetle because of the green head and the coppery leaf. The adults will lay eggs in and around turf grass areas that are in sunny locations. So usually probably pretty close to where they're feeding. So if you have some of their favorite foods like linden trees, rose bushes, grapevines, raspberries, they do not lay their eggs in garden plots or soil because the grubs of the Japanese beetle feed on the roots of turf grass. This is just classical Japanese beetle damage. Real lacy chew marks all through the leaves. It's actually kind of interesting because the Japanese beetles are going after this plant, but not the plants around it. So it's kind of a good trap or lure to keep them off, like your hydrangeas, for example. There are treatments for the grub, and you can choose to use them. However, most of the treatments for the grubs contain a neonicotinoid called imidacloprid, which is known to be harmful for bees. So that is just not an item that we choose to sell here at Tonkadale, but it does exist. So that's one way to go after the grubs underground if you have a very large infestation, but just read the label and know what you're doing and do it safely. So our job as gardeners in the summer is to go out and kill as many adults as we can, okay? So here are a few of the ways we can do that. Number one is take your favorite beverage, coffee, wine, tea, whatever you like, go out to the garden, grab a bucket and make some soapy water. So you're gonna go with your bucket and your soapy water, you're gonna just collect the individual beetles off the plants and then drown them in the soapy water. I think just like pairing that with your favorite beverage can make it fun, right? There also are a couple of insecticidal sprays that do work on the adult beetles. This one is the Japanese beetle killer, and this is a traditional insecticide. When you're using insecticides, I recommend using them sparingly and few and far between, but if you have some prized plants or things that are like really established and you just love them, there might be some instances where it is appropriate to use a pesticide, and that's all up to you and kind of like what your values are in the garden. Now, when we're using pesticides, we need to completely read the label. The label is the law, and then it's recommended to apply them when and where pollinators are not actively foraging, and don't spray on any flowers. So pollinators are usually more quiet in the early morning and later in the evening when it's cooler. So that's a good time to treat for Japanese beetles. So we have the Japanese beetle spray. We also have 8, which is just kind of a utilitarian insecticide that works on many pests. So 8 is here. And then we have the Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew, which is spinosad. And this one is suitable for organic gardening and can be used in a lot of circumstances, including Japanese beetle control. Captain Jack. The last thing we're going to talk about is the Japanese beetle bagger. Now this is a bit controversial. The University of Minnesota doesn't necessarily recommend the Japanese beetle bagger. My current thinking is let's kill as many of these dang beetles as possible. This is a pheromone. So the pheromone says, hey beetles, come and get me. And then they crawl in here, they get stuck, and they die. A few things to watch out for is like things like raccoons and other creatures. They'll happily feed on dead Japanese beetle carcasses, so you might want to empty this frequently. And if it gets really full and then it rains, gets kind of stinky. Proceed with caution. You can take the whole bag and throw it away, or you can, dump it out and reuse it. If you have more specific questions or need more information, we do have a blog on our website, or you can send us a message. We're happy to help with all of your Japanese beetles struggles, questions, concerns. Thanks for watching. We'll see you at Tonkadale.